Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Jeremy, from Come On In Bills and Beware the Stampede, with my co-host, my main man over here, Lawrence. So thanks for joining us here on the Come On In Sports Network. And man, crazy week. A lot going on. A lot going on in the football world. Everyone's going everywhere. Bills making all kinds of moves and signings. And guys that I didn't think would end up in the places they are all of a sudden in whole new home.
That's the beauty of this time of year for NFL fans. It's that season of hope. Free agency can help fix many ails that a team has, right? On paper, at least. Generally, teams that win this time of year don't end up winning when it matters. Save for like the Eagles last year, who a year ago today signed Saquon Barkley to that.
And aren't they glad they did that?
Oh yeah. And then it's funny, just before Bills talk here, but the Giants signed Steve Slayton, Slayton to a Darius Slayton to a 3-year deal. It was very similar to what they could have given Saquon to keep him. So that's more of just salt in the wound there for Giants fans.
I mean, it's not like Darius Slayton's necessarily bad, right? But he's no Saquon Barkley. That's for damn sure.
But it's been a hot news cycle for the Bills the last 5 or 6 days. We have some news like from today just for the Bills start just to kick us off. Compensatory picks were announced this evening, probably like an hour and a half ago. And the Bills are getting 2 compensatory picks, both in round 5. Pick 169 and pick 173. So thoughts on getting 2 extra 5th-round picks?
I mean, it's like anything. You're not necessarily probably going to find a true starter out of there, but you may find a diamond in the rough. And anytime you can pick up those extra picks, obviously the earlier rounds, the better. But 5th round's not bad. And you come away with somebody that could fill a hole for you or sit on the sideline for a year or two and learn and get that experience. I mean, you can't really put a price tag on that, and especially when it's something that is kind of I always look at it as a bonus, right? So it'll be curious to see what we do with the 2 picks if we try to package them up for anything, if anybody gets moved or we actually end up using those picks.
That's what I'm kind of thinking is like once they made the compensatory picks to be like put into deals, like it seems like I hope that we use that as kind of bargaining chips to move up when we see in the first few rounds. But we didn't have 5th-round picks heading into tonight, so having 2 is a bonus. And Matt Milano was a 5th-round pick. So Christian Benford, 7th-round pick. So we can find people, but just nice little bonus for us. Now we have 10 picks coming up in the April draft.
Well, and I like the fact that they've already made some moves, made some signings. I mean, there's obviously spaces that we need to address and issues we need to address, but at the same point, I feel like we're not in a catastrophic position, right? You look at some of these teams around the NFL and you're like, wow, you need a quarterback. Like you need a running back and like 2 wide receivers. I don't look at the Bills and think like we're in that sort of a situation where we're in dire straits by any means. I think we've made some good moves, some good signings. I like watching this time, not necessarily obviously for the Bills, but I like to see where all these other players end up. Like Zach Wilson, is now somewhat relevant again. Kenny Pickett goes to the Browns. It's just, it's wild to see where these guys end up and some of the deals that get made too.
Oh yeah, and it's crazy money season. Like, and this not being a particularly strong free agency class, you seen like that's why some of these deals like really that guy's getting that money. It reminds me of like 5-6 years ago, like in the NBA where they had that big jump in the salary cap and like the teams had to reach the floor. So you saw guys like Timothy Mozgov, right, making like insane money just because they had to spend the money. And that's some of these players I'm feeling is kind of the same of like teams just have money, like, all right, we got to spend some, and then here we go, throw it at this guy and that guy. But it is fun to see what other teams do and to not be one of those teams desperate to do something like we're strong enough where we don't have to do that.
But I also get nervous too, because then I see guys going to different places, and that makes me nervous in a different way. Like I see, honestly, like Justin Fields going to the Jets. Like I don't hate that. I like Justin Fields. I always have. I think he's got a ton of talent. I don't love the fact he's in our division. I don't think that makes the Jets all of a sudden a top tier team necessarily, but I think that is definitely an upgrade over an Aaron Rodgers who had no legs, couldn't run.
Mhm.
You know, the throwing might not be as good, but I think that gives them more options for a team that could use somebody that's got some mobility for sure. As we still by Aaron Rodgers' lack of that.
Yeah, it's a whole different dynamic for them, and they're just a young team. The Jets are probably the team I think that worries me the most as a Bills fan. Of just they have that young talent. Like the defense has lots of young people, a lot of young skill position players on offense. So, but you mentioned kind of like who we're signing. Here's a couple from tonight. Bills kind of keeping their own. To me, that's the theme of the Bills free agency period so far. We got Ty Johnson re-signing on a 2-year deal. Any Bills fan will tell you like he's worth his weight. He plays so much, especially on third down.
Yep.
And then Gilliam's kind of that glue special teams guy that every team needs. He's not like a break the bank guy, but he's there every week doing his job, doing the dirty work. So what do you think on these two re-signings for the Bills?
Well, so it's always funny with Gilliam with me because I think we're one of the only teams, and I don't know this, and I should have looked this up. I think we're only one of the only teams in the NFL that still carries like a true fullback because I believe that's what he's actually designated as. I like him. I think he for what we pay him for what he does, I think he brings a lot to the table. He's definitely like more of a Swiss Army knife. Like you can plug him in a couple different plays. In a couple different situations and get some value out of him. Ty Johnson, I mean, look what he did for us in the playoffs, right? Like that touchdown. I mean, everyone's going to remember that. That was just, I mean, that just shows how talented that is, like as far as how good he is as a receiving back. Like that is not an easy catch if you're a wide receiver, let alone is a running back to make that play. And I mean, we've had the luxury to watch him for a bit now. And even when he gets in the game, if you're running Cook or even you throw in Davis and you put Ty Johnson, he just brings a different dimension and a different style of running to the offense that you don't typically see out of the other two. So he's a good change of pace back. He's a great receiving back. I don't think he's a true 3-down back necessarily in an offense, but we don't need him to be that. And that's not what he's designed to be in our offense. So I like both of these. I'm a big fan of if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like, we've got a good offense for the most part. The team works well together, like try to keep these guys home. And honestly, a lot of times when we lose these guys, it costs us a lot more money to go pick them up somewhere else. And you bring those guys in and you don't know what you're getting. Like, you know what their stats are, but you know how they're going to fit in the locker room. You don't know how they're going to pick up the offense. So I was pleased about both of these moves.
Yeah, but I think you can make the argument with the Bills running back room, top to bottom, like they've got to have one of the top 5 running back rooms in the league. You saw, you mentioned already what Ty Johnson can do, the playoff touchdown. I think of the start of that Detroit game where we were just targeting him. Like he's somebody that you have to account for. Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, a couple times he was able to put in for Cook. Like he had big games. And then obviously we all know what Cook did with his touchdowns and like yards this year. So like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the Bills had an extremely potent running game last year with a 3-headed monster that really you lose one, you still got 2 really solid backs. So nothing wrong with either of those 2 signings. And they don't move the needle probably for people outside of Orchard Park. But for Bills fans who watch every game, they know like these 2 guys are important for the Bills moving forward.
Well, and you just don't, I mean, and the other thing is with Ty Johnson, right? Like right now, kind of an insurance policy, right? Let's say things go south with Cook. Like, let's say he ends up going, we get rid of him. I mean, at least we know we have Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. Like you said, we know what we kind of have with him under the hood. We got to use him a decent amount this year. He actually did work in the offense more than I thought he was going to, especially by the end of the year. And I really liked him out of Kentucky. I've said that in shows before. He flew under the radar because he played for Kentucky, right? Not a team that many people are watching, not a team many people are paying attention to. I feel that way. Same thing like with Shakir. He played at Boise State. We pick up some of these guys that play for these schools that aren't on the map. They're not, the Alabamas or the Oklahomas or Ohio States of the country. And I think the team in Bean has just a really good knack for picking out these talented kids from these smaller schools that just seem to take off. I know we're going to talk about Blake Shakir. Like great job picking him out of Boise State, and now we got him back for 4 more years for I feel like a hell of a deal. I mean, I'm not mad at that at all.
Let's just throw that up there then, since you bring it up.
There we go. Shakir, 4 years, 53 million, 31 guaranteed. I mean, how can you look at this guy who's one of the top slot receivers in the NFL? And maybe he's not the top, but I would absolutely put him in the top 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Doesn't drop anything, makes somehow yards out of what should seemingly be a play that should be ended when he catches it, and somehow breaks free for another 10 or 15 yards every time, and is just a absolute reliable safety valve for Josh Allen anytime he needs him. And we're picking him up for that. I mean, for that price, like that's a no-brainer to me all day. And I love this deal too, because it doesn't strap us so much in cash that we can't do other things like we did this week in signing Josh Allen for a few more years, right? Like these types of deals gives us the opportunity to be able to do those things to keep us competitive. So I love that Shakir. He probably could have been greedier, and I'm sure he could have gotten more money than this, but this to me is a very team-friendly deal, and I love seeing this.
Oh, 100%. And he's Josh's security blanket. Like, anytime we need a clutch moment, like in our head, I'm thinking, all right, Shakir, where is he? Yep. And that's been since his rookie year in limited plays. Like when he was given the chance from the get-go, he made plays. I remember that Miami playoff game his rookie year where nobody really knew what he was going to do. He had a couple real big catches, like right in the clutch, like middle of the field, all people all around him getting nailed. Like you said, he turns nothing into something all the time.
Yeah.
And the screens that he's able to bust 2 or 3 tackles, get out and get a first down. And the deal is a team-friendly deal. Like I look at what Jalen Waddle's probably a better receiver overall, but he's making $30-40 million more. He's not $30-40 million better than Shakir.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, and that's the thing that's beautiful. I mean, when you're averaging this out to, is what? I'm not the best math guy, whatever, $13 million. I'm going to round it here. 13 million a year. Like that's crazy for a guy of his talent, right? Who definitely earned, in my opinion, right, looking at football money, a bigger contract than that probably, and more money than that. So to get him for that for 4 more years, I'm thrilled. I mean, and that takes care of a nice need, right? That gives us our slot receiver for the next couple of years. And you don't expect him to necessarily put up 100-yard game every week, but he's had those moments where he's put up, 90-yard games for 7, 8, 9 receptions. And that makes a huge difference in a game.
And that's all with kind of everyone knowing he was our focal point last year.
Yeah. Because Kincaid really, I mean, I love Kincaid, but I feel like I don't want to say he regressed. I just don't think he ever really recovered from his injury. Mm-hmm. I feel like he never really just kind of found like his rhythm from his rookie year. I'm not worried. People are like, oh, Kincaid, he's not that great. No, he's that good. He really is. He was great at Utah. I think he's still a phenomenal tight end. I love him matched up with Knox. I think that's just a solid tight end room. But it's nice to know you've got somebody else to step up and be that number one guy when, your tight end or your other receivers aren't really cutting it, or you don't have them for that matter, right? Like we talked about that, like not having a true, real, like outside number one receiver because it didn't really exist.
We got Bills Mafia being represented. That's right. Bills Mafia is represented. Keeping it real. Who dat? Dolph, welcome in, fam. Welcome in. Come on in, Bills. Talking the Shakir extension. Talk about number one receiver. That'll bring us to 2 of the moves the Bills have made thus far from new faces. We got Josh Palmer signed to a 3-year, $36 million deal. This is a move I really like. I like Palmer before this, and then now that we signed him, I go back and I'm watching film of him. He's the type of receiver the Bills need. He is a man beater. He is able to get separation. I specifically watched him against the Chiefs a lot, and he's like him being able to put McDuffie in a spin cycle gives me chills. I can't wait for that to happen for us. So I'm very happy with that signing. He gives us a boundary receiver that can beat man, something we desperately needed last year. So again, this isn't a oh my God, it's gonna be the top headline on ESPN type deal. but it is a deal, I think, and a player that I can really boost the Bills' offense.
I mean, I think Palmer he just never really got the shot he probably needed with the Chargers. I think he's incredibly talented. I just feel like he just faded over there. Like he was never really targeted, never really that involved in the offense. And I think for what he could potentially bring to the table, because I mean, his stats aren't bad. They're not great. But I think for what he could bring to the table for the Bills, I'm really excited about him. He reminds me a lot of former Charger when he was healthy, like a Mike Williams type potential. Like I really see a lot of like Mike Williams when he was healthy and good, in Josh Palmer, just in a younger, healthier version of Mike Williams, who I don't even know where he's playing now. It was the Jets, then it was the Steelers. He may still be there. Who knows?
Yeah, he's not relevant.
No, he's not. So, yeah, I like it, and we needed that outside threat. We needed somebody to go vertical. We didn't have it. And now we've at least brought in somebody. And again, 3 years, $36 million. These are numbers that aren't breaking the bank, right? It gives us some flexibility. It allowed us to do some stuff with Josh. Like that's the best part, is not being strapped so tight that we're looking. And I will always refer back to them. The Browns, right? Like going and getting Kenny Pickett. Like they don't have anything. They have no room. They have no room. They have no money left. And it's like now you're just trying to plug holes with cheap options. There's a lot of wild and crazy things with free agency.
Yeah,
just names thrown around. I mean, Zach Wilson. That to me was like the craziest thing.
Yeah, to Miami.
What do you get? $6 million? I think they gave him
$6 million. Danny Dimes to the Colts to try to battle with AR.
I don't hate that actually. No. I don't hate that for a couple of reasons. I'll tell you why. I think AR is going to be the starter. I'm big on AR still. He's just a naturally gifted human being. The guy's huge, fast, strong. But they have a very similar skill set as far as their mobility and arm strength goes to Anthony Richardson, but they have a lot of the same similar skill set. So I feel like regardless of who wins it, let's say it's AR, let's say it's Danny Dimes, doesn't matter. I feel like either of those guys, whoever's backing up, would be able to naturally fit into that offense and you wouldn't have to change much. Like if you have Joe Flacco coming in for AR, you're running that offense very differently. Because Joe Flacco's, I don't even know how old he is now, but he was like 40 something, right? Like he's not running. It's where AR isn't afraid to just tuck it and go. And everyone forgets Daniel Jones was a very mobile quarterback too, and still actually runs quite a bit. He's not one of those guys that just waits for the pocket to collapse. Like he will take off. They will design quarterback runs for him. So he's one of those guys that's like, okay, that's a fit. Like I could see that working out well for Indy and having a good backup. I think either which way. And then people would say AR is not that great. He's probably not yet. He's still raw, but he's got talent to win you games. I mean, size and speed matter.
Oh, 100%. And for Danny Dimes is smart because he's probably thinking, well, where can I go to actually have a chance to start and play?
And there's limited options on that, in the NFL at this point, because a lot of guys are already moving around. Fields went to the Jets. Vegas got their quarterback in Geno Smith. So it's like everyone's starting to shift around, and then Darnold goes to Seattle. So it's like there's only so many spots, and you've got backups like Sam Howell, who probably thought, great, maybe I'm going to get to start again. And then they bring in Sam Darnold. So he's, I feel bad for Sam Howell. I like him too.
And one of the teams open for a quarterback they're not going to sign Danny Dimes back after that limited him too.
I mean, unless they want him to play safety again, they could do that.
Right. And then the Bills' other signing so far, Michael, I'm going to say Hote would be my guess on how to say that.
Yeah,
3-year deal, right. 2 years effective. I'll let you kick this off because in our pre-show lobby, you're talking about how you really like this signing. Give us your thoughts on Michael's fit with Buffalo.
I love this kid. Everyone loves an underdog, right? Like, kid played at Brown. No one thinks of football and thinks Brown University, right? Goes undrafted, ends up getting on, as a practice player, ends up making it and starting and becomes a steadfast cornerstone for the Rams. I also like him from the perspective of the fact that he's Canadian, right? Like you got Buffalo, like we're right on the border of Canada. So like I know he loves the fact of coming to Buffalo because, there's that whole connection with Canada because it is one of those teams that's well represented by our Canadian friends up north. It's fun when you see players excited to come to you, and not just because they're getting money or they get to keep playing, but because they genuinely want to be there, right? Like, and you can see that, like he was posted on Twitter and, just talking about coming over. And like I said, a guy out of Brown that nobody thought anything of. And here he is now playing in the NFL, getting signed by the Bills and like a chance to win a Super Bowl and play with Josh Allen. Like, dude, that's pretty awesome. Like, you always hope for that as a player. I mean, I didn't play football in college, but I played lacrosse. It's like my cousin went pro. I would have liked to go pro, but it wasn't in the cards for me. But like, that's something you always dream of, like having that opportunity. And to be able to do that's pretty special and pretty limited. So, good piece to bring in, cheap piece to bring in. And I think he's going to be one of those fan favorites that people are just going to naturally gravitate towards, like some of those players we have on our team, like Reed Ferguson, guys like that you just embrace, right?
And that's what I was going to say. What I've seen from him, like he seems like a perfect fit for what the Bills are going to love. The energy he brings, he's one of those hustle players, but he's like, this guy has played linebacker, D tackle, defensive end, wide 9. He came in at 300 pounds. They trimmed him down to 270, 260. Like I see a highlight of him out on the perimeter covering DK Metcalf and breaking the pass up. Yeah, it's a quick slant, but still he's a D lineman playing it well enough to break the pass up on a quick slant. So you mentioned earlier about Shakir being like a chess piece for the Bills to move around.
Yep.
From what this is going to be able to have the Bills defense have a chess piece. And I've seen a lot of people like Cover One, people who are film people, saying that they remind him of what the Bills did with Lorenzo Alexander, being able to push from the inside or out. So they're saying we haven't had somebody like that since him. So he'll offer them that.
That's a lifetime ago, it feels like, since we've had Zoe. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, anytime you can get a guy that's interchangeable, plug and play, like, you can't put the same type of value on those players because it's one of those things. You've got X amount of spots on your team. And let's be honest, after you get down past your second string, and this is no discredit to anybody that plays in the NFL, because hell, you're all better than I'll ever be at football, first of all. And second of all, you're there for a reason. But like, it drops off substantially, right? In just the overall performance and whatnot. And it's not because they're not good. It's just there are those elite, and then there's other guys, right? But like, if you have a guy that's an elite player that you can plug into different holes, somebody goes down, something happens, you've got a lot more flexibility. I'd rather have a full roster of guys that I can move around, like you said, like chess pieces, than I would have. This guy's just say a 95 at this position. I'd rather take a guy that's 92 at 3 positions and have him over the guy that's a 95, 96 at that one position all day.
And you become less predictable as a defense.
Yep.
If all this guy does is rush a passer, like, all right, they think we're passing here, let's do it. But he has played, like, he has had like over 1,000 snaps the last 2 years on the Rams defense. So it's not like he doesn't play the game. He's had 80 snaps at linebacker. He's had defensive tackle, defensive end snaps. So, like, you have no idea what he's doing. Is he dropping in coverage? Is he going out into the flat? Is he making a loop in a stunt with our D tackle? Is he the D tackle? So, like, that chess piece just creates more confusion for the offense, which can only help everyone else on the defensive line.
And again, what I talked about earlier, what I love about a guy like this is a guy that never probably, honestly, at the end of the day, didn't think he'd probably get here, right? Like, he knew he was good, but to now be here and have that, like, guys like that, they don't take those moments for granted. Like, you realize you have a special opportunity in front of you that you've worked your whole life to get to. Those are the guys that I want on my team, right? Like, it's like the replacements, because I watched that the other day, R.I.P. Gene Hackman. But it's like he talks about, like, the most dangerous men are those that have, they're playing because there's no tomorrow. Like, for him, there was no tomorrow, essentially. And now that he's here and he's in the NFL, it's like just have at it, man. Have a day. Have a lot of days.
So, I mean, that's the 2 Bills so far free agent moves. But they were very active before free agency even started. We already talked to about the Shakir extension, and you already brought this up. Josh taking a deal to kind of put the Bills in better cap situation. For those who have not heard, here is Josh Allen's deal, 6 years, $330 million, $250 million of that guaranteed, ties Allen to Western New York until his age 34 season. First of all, that makes me very happy. I don't want Josh to be in any uniform other than a Bills one throughout his career. But like you said, cap space, like it's structured in a way that they can always go to him to create more cap space. So Josh, again, is showing that he took his money, but he's also smart enough to know, like, we need to have people around me to be able to win. So he didn't take the full bank like Shakir didn't. And I think that's to the betterment of the team overall.
Well, unlike anything, I mean, we knew we were going to have to pay him at some point. Like that was always going to be in the cards, right? And I think we all thought we were crazy. I hate to say this guy's name because I don't like him, but Patrick Mahomes, right? When the Chiefs went and did, what was it, 10 years for $500 million, and everyone's like, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? So it's like you look at what the market starts to do, and the market just continues to get more expensive, and it's going to continue to, right? That's just the way it goes. It never regresses. It's never like, oh, we're going to start paying everybody, $10 million as opposed to 20. It's only going to continue to go up. So it's like at some point you want to try to lock some of these guys in sooner than later because you don't want to have to end up eating that a couple years down the line. Now, granted, like anything, it's a risk. You don't know. He could get hurt. He could, not be able to play again. Like there's a lot that goes into that. But overall, with his, track record, his health, I mean, he's been on the field a ton. I don't know how many games he's missed over his career off the top of my head, but and he's an MVP. Like you're going to have to pay that guy, right? Like that's just the reality of it. And to lock him up, to get some of that flexibility that we need to continue to bring guys in, to continue to make this team successful. There's no part of me that felt bad about this when I saw it. Like I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the Bills. I think this works out really well for everybody. And this in no way makes me sad or stressed out by this deal.
No, and people who don't know are like talking smack about it. But like you said about things don't regress. The Bills are smart, I think, with all the extensions they handed out the last week. You look at teams like Dallas who just wait, and then what did they end up doing? They overpay by a ton. They waited forever on Dak, and he's the highest paid quarterback ever still, $60 million a year. They waited forever, and CeeDee Lamb had to pay a ton. Same thing with Parsons. They could have signed him last year, but now all these deals with Myles Garrett and Max Crosby have driven his price up. The Bills are smart in that they're getting all these done, so they're the first ones, and everyone reacts to the deal the Bills are signing.
Well, set the market, right? Yeah. That's the thing. You want to be that team, set the market, set it where it is. And I mean, like you said with the Cowboys, now look at now you're in a cap crunch, right? You're probably not going to be able to keep Parsons. Or, you're going to have to get really creative with who you're signing and what you're doing. Like, you can't afford to keep all these guys. The Browns did the Browns thing again, as they always do, right? Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't pay Myles Garrett, but you just paid a guy $160 million that doesn't want to play for you. Really?
Yep. And the Bengals, too, I think, like someone posted last year at this time, they could have signed Hendrickson, Higgins, and Chase for way less than what they're going to have to pay now for all three. Because they dug their heels in, like, no, we're not moving. And like you said, it's the NFL. Things only get more expensive. Unless a player, like you said, suffers like a real bad injury, nothing gets cheaper. The longer you wait for these star great players, the more you got to pay. So Brandon Beane is showing his intelligence, realizing, right, that's what's going to happen. Because next year, all these guys would, like Rousseau, Bernard, Shakir, would all been due next year. And Allen was still like his deal was antiquated at this point. So he was smart, and those four core guys are done. We still have Benford that might get done and Cook. So instead of waiting till next year and be like, all right, we're going to lose three of these guys, he was proactive, got it done, and created cap space for this year in the process.
Well, and you know what these guys do, right? You've seen it. You've watched it. You've seen it real time. You've seen the tape. You've got the numbers. Like you've seen these guys develop through your system. You know that they're going to be key cogs to what you're trying to do with that machine. And to wait to sign them longer, like you said, like the Bengals, you're now screwing yourself because now you've had a franchise tag again, and you're going to end up losing one of your two top receivers. Like maybe they can sign them, but if you do, you are really going to be handicapped by those two contracts because the amount of money that's going to be tied up in those for years to come. And that's why it drives me nuts with some of these teams. It's like, well, they wait till we'll pick up your 5th-year option, then we'll try and extend you. It's like, if you know in year 3 or 4 they're going to be good or they're going to fit, sign them then. Get them cheaper because they're going to take that deal knowing they have some guarantee 2-3 years from now, and you're going to end up paying more down the road most likely if you know they're already that good because they're probably going to continue to perform.
Yeah, especially if they don't have that contract. Guys get fat and lazy after they sign. So, like, they're going to keep playing hard. They're going to do it. And then, like you said, you know who these guys are. It's not like you're drafting somebody.
Apparently, like Tua. I saw there was something on Twitter today about Tua, like on some boat drinking beer, and apparently he was like way out of shape.
Oh, well, good for him.
I mean, hey, I'm not sad about that. If that's the case, like, have at it, man. I'll send you a case of some Labatt, and they don't get that down there, so we'll send some down there for him.
If you want to get fat and lazy, Tua, we can hook you up.
That's right. Open invitation. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll send you some beer.
And we mentioned earlier about Shakir signing a team-friendly deal. We look at Bernard, 4 years, $50 million. Only half of that is guaranteed. Another, like, I think, really team-friendly deal, getting one of our only 2 captains from last year locked in. And I read an article by Ty Dunn, who does long-form writing on Go Long on Substack. Really great article on Bernard, like in his mindset, just like how he is, like, how can I help my team? How can I be better? Like that. That's why the Bills fans love him, is just they can see that he wants to be the best he can be, and like he puts it forward. So great deal for that, for the captain of the Bills defense.
Yep. I mean, look at his numbers. 104 tackles, 2 receptions, 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovery. And you were getting him for $12.5 million a year.
And he was hurt a lot of that. Like, he got hurt that second game of the year, and I think that hurt him for, even though he came back, like 6-7 games.
Yeah, but honestly, I think part of that too is why we got him at the price we did, right? Like, I think we got a discount on that because of it, which I don't ever want anybody to get hurt. But at the same point, if it can save us a little bit of cash and we can get get a guy back that we know is going to be a good key piece and one of our captains for a good price because of it, like, that just a little bit worked out in our favor. But yeah, we saw what happened when he's not on the field too, right? And secondary right now is obviously pretty important, in our defense. So Groot.
Thoughts on the Groot deal?
I love Groot. I hate Miami. Like, I hate I hate Miami.
Yeah.
But man, I loved him in Miami, and I was so excited when the Bills signed him, and I'm still excited he's with the Bills. This to me, like, no brainer. Like, no brainer. The fact that when I saw it signing, I was so happy. I don't think this is overpriced. I don't think this is like crazy out of the market. I think for what you've seen over the past couple of years, he's an impact player. He gets sacks. He gets to the quarterback. He generates pressures. There's nothing I don't love about this contract. And he was one of those guys that I was like, if we don't sign him, I feel like this is going to come back to bite us somehow. Like, when we lost Tremaine Edmonds, I was like, well, okay, not like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like if we lost Groot, that was really going to hurt, because I also hate losing those guys that are homegrown, right? We bring them in and you see them really start to grow into the player they're going to become, and they can be, and then lose those guys to somewhere else. So I'm really glad he's not one of those guys. I love his energy. I love his passion, and he's just an impact player.
Yeah, and he's arguably one of the best run defensive ends in the league. And if he can just convert half of his pressures that he doesn't get sacks, and like, he pressures the quarterback, his numbers are real good at pressuring the quarterback. So he can, all he has to do is just close it. And but he also could get more help along the defensive line to turn some of those pressures into sacks. But he is the guy now with Von cut. Like, he is I love Ed, but he's not to me, when I'm looking for the Bills defensive line to make a play, he is the guy I'm going to look for and be at the TV going, come on, Greg, make a play.
Yeah. And I like Ed, but I'm with you on that. I 100% agree with that. You're not wrong in that. Groot's just, hell, when you got a nickname like Groot, like, you're good.
And he's still younger than Ray Davis,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and he's on his second contract.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
so
nuts.
yeah, and then somebody on the other end of the career cutting Von
Mm.
Miller. I think we all saw that one coming. If he wasn't going to take the pay cut, so they saved $8.3 million against the cap. I mean, compared to what he was the year before, 6 sacks, 17 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. Just injuries derailed what he like the first half of that year, his first year. You saw what could have been before he got hurt against Detroit. He had 8 sacks. He was making the plays he was supposed to in the clutch, and then the injury derailed him. He came back sooner than he should have. They all admitted it after last year, 2 years ago now. So just something that what could have been really with Vaughn when I think about his time with the Bills.
I mean, it was time. It didn't pan out the way we wanted. Let's be real. It was one of those. It was an experiment. It was an impact move. We thought it was going to generate more than it did, and it was a miss. I'm never going to be mad for trying in a situation like that to go get a guy of that caliber if you think it's going to work. But there's a lot of risk in that with age and that type of stuff that it's not on your side, especially in a sport like football, right? Like the older you get, it's definitely not helpful.
Yeah.
And it was a failed experiment, right? In the end, it's what it had to be. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't the player that I think we were all hoping for in the end.
God, no. That's the what if I think about is like him and Mack were both free agents at the same time. How different things could have been for the Bills if Mack had been the one that they signed.
Yep.
Ugh, I don't even think about it. Ugh.
I know. Well, anyway, in the worst part of that is Mack, playing in Buffalo, right? Like,
yes.
So that's the other part that kills me too. Is like, dude, you literally could have brought that kid back home, and
could have righted the wrong from not getting him in the first place.
I mean, and look at how he's still continued to perform, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And he's re-signed with the Chargers, right? Because he's been productive as opposed to getting cut 3 years later.
And who knows what's going to happen with Vaughn. I mean, I'm assuming somebody's going to take him, but the question is for what price and where are they willing to give up for him?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if the Bills brought him back, get like a very much discounted price, like just as his pressure rate was still pretty decent last year. Like he generated pressures at a decent clip, but not at the money he was making. So if you
it'd have to be incentive, like almost all incentive based.
And hey, I would take that as like a fourth defensive end for like, all right, you get 10 sacks. You're like, yeah, if you get 10 sacks, here's $5 million.
Dude, I take that all day. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's going to force him to be on the field and honestly work for it.
Yeah. So we're less than a day away from the actual start of free agency. What do you see as the Bills' biggest need remaining that they need to get filled in some way?
I mean, I think for me, it's still I would like to see us have a stronger secondary than we have. I'd like us to go get potentially another vertical threat receiver to bring in. Not that I think Josh Palmer is in it, but like let's see what else is out there and kick the tires a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got rid of Elam, which I might be the only one that's somewhat sad about that. Only because I still think that kid has a lot of potential. He killed us. He killed us when we needed him not to.
He's still a Bill. Elam is still a Bill.
Traded.
The Panthers are interested in trading for him, but he never. I just looked it up. Never actually happened yet. But the writing's on the wall there.
Then I stand corrected on that.
No, he's not. I don't think there's any way he's back with the Bills this year.
I don't think so either. But I mean, at this point in time, he still is.
Asante Samuel Jr. is still a free agent. I still am holding out hope that that's who the Bills are.
I've heard rumors that there's interest there, mutual interest. So if that happens to come to fruition, that would be wow. I would be pumped for that move.
Yes, that would clear up, I think, a lot of going into the draft. Like speed we need at receiver. We're still, I think, lacking speed. We're fine at running back. We don't need offensive line help. D-line, secondary, like you said, I think are where we need to focus.
Yeah. Well, you said
Do what the Rams did. Take the first few picks and draft the best defensive lineman available, like the Rams did, and just hope that they can turn out.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think everyone's always like, well, you need to draft this position. Honestly, there's nothing wrong for just finding one spot and being like, I'm drafting the best available guy that's there. That's it. And just seeing what happens. And I mean, it's worked out well for the Rams. I mean, Keon Coleman, right, we got Keon, but I haven't seen enough of him yet to really have a good feeling one way or the other. I think he's going to be decent, but he really wasn't as involved this year as I would have liked to see him be. I mean, but we've talked about it before, with Brady. It was a weird year. We didn't see Kincaid wholly involved. Granted, he was hurt. Coleman wasn't really involved. We didn't see anything out of Mari Cooper, basically.
No. And he hasn't signed anywhere either.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Ravens tonight, but Cooper's still available. Interesting.
I wouldn't hate it if we went and got Cooper Kupp. Just saying, that.
No, really,
I wouldn't be mad.
So, saying they're going to cut him because nobody's going to trade for him. So, what would you pay Cooper Kupp? What would be your good deal to sign him?
It's hard because it's the injury thing that stresses me out with him. Is he going to stay healthy enough to be an impact player? I mean, I'd say if you give him for 15, 12, I think wouldn't be unreasonable. I wouldn't necessarily be upset by that. I think he'd probably have the potential to get more than that still, though. I think the only thing for him that's going to hurt him is honestly Puka Nacua. I think Cooper Kupp's still a damn good receiver. I think the problem was Puka was just so good that Cooper Kupp faded into the background. And if he was hurt.
I have a good buddy who's a Rams fan, and he hated how Cooper kind of got phased out. And he's like, he's still so good. He just didn't like how he was ignored for long.
He basically disappeared from that offense. That was it. It was all of a sudden he was just gone. He's on the field, but he's not targeted at all.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his fault. It's not like he can't catch or produce, but Puka was just that good and that reliable.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that too. Now that you bring it up. But are there any other closing thoughts you'd like to part with us, Jeremy?
No, other than I love this. I love this time of year because I love seeing where all these guys go. I love seeing these crazy signings that it's somebody's going here, somebody's going there. This person's going to be the backup. Now they're the starter. It's if you told me Kenny Pickett was going to be a Brown yesterday, I would have been I don't think that's the
Never
case.
Would have thought that. We are.
And some of them make sense, right? Geno Smith going to Vegas to reunite with Pete Carroll, which makes me think now all of a sudden he's going to go and get half the Seahawks receivers, get the band back together. Fields going to New York, right? Starting to look and see what's our division sizing up to look like this year. And the fact that we've already made a lot of smart moves. And like you said, we've taken care of a lot of pieces that needed to be taken care of that honestly make life a lot easier down the line for us, right? They're not spots we have to worry about or guys we have to worry about next year, the year after at this point, which I love. Let's see. Nate, what do we got? Nate, Kirk Cousins going to Cleveland Browns and Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers is going somewhere. I don't know where he's going.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Rodgers being connected to the Steelers, Nate. So I definitely think there's some fire where that smoke is. Cousins to Cleveland, I have no idea how they'd swing that financially.
Atlanta would have to eat a ton of money, and I don't think they're going to do it. I can't see them doing that for what they guaranteed Kirk. I mean, and that's one of those contracts, and it's funny. I said for years, even when he was in Minnesota, he is the most consistent quarterback as far as being average and getting paid a ton of money guaranteed because he got these contracts and I'm I don't understand it. I still can't wrap my head around he got these desperate teams at the right time to pay him all this money guaranteed. And I can't understand it. I could see Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh. And if I was Pittsburgh and I could get Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't be upset. Obviously, it's not going to be Fields. And Rodgers, as much as I don't like him, he can still sling a football.
DK, you got Metcalf. I mean, you got Metcalf,
Pickens.
Yep, you got still like their defense is still their defense.
Yep, you got Freiermuth. Like you got, I mean, you've got some good pieces there. Like that. It's funny because that team. I do look at Mike Tomlin, and Steelers fans might hate me for this, but like they gotta get rid of Mike Tomlin. I'm sorry. He's just an average coach, and he does well enough every year to get into the playoffs, and that's all he does. And at what point do you look at that roster and say, we've got talent on this roster, we're just not competing? Like you had Najee Harris, you had Warren, you had Freiermuth, like you had good pieces, and you just couldn't get past it.
Yep, I've been on that train for a long time with Tomlin. And for me, just like you said, I don't think the Bills have any glaring needs. I think we have enough picks now, like they could really target specific players and positions in the draft by packaging a couple picks together to move up and get them. Okay. I'm still holding out hope they trade for Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals to really give a proven pass rusher. Imagine him and Groot aside from each other. That would be, lights out.
I mean, that would be a tough get, though. I don't know what he's going to command, but I feel like that's going to be one of those you look at and you're like, oof, that's going to be a hefty price tag, I feel like.
But that's my dream. That's my dream scenario, because then we have somebody who's proven in the NFL. But aside from that, I want the Rams style of draft. Just take a couple D linemen, take a cornerback in like the third round, and then just roll, and then BPA from there on out. Like, who's the best player, draft them.
Yep.
From that point on. But
Nate said Kirk Cousins met with the Cleveland Browns GM owner. No clue how they can pay Kirk Cousins after paying Myles Garrett. They have absolutely no money. Yeah, I mean, the Browns did a Browns thing. Is they do every year somehow with somebody. They just continuously shoot themselves in the foot for 3-4 years further down the road. I mean, I have a lot of friends, because we have an office in Cleveland, that are Browns fans. I'm sad for them because they just – I mean, you just paid a guy $160 million that openly was like, I don't want to be on this team because they don't compete. And now you've paid him all this money, and you've got him in your locker room for the next 4 years. Like, that's not a good fit. That was not a good call. But, hey, not our franchise, so.
Well, I mean, I just Googled it, and SI, the Atlanta Falcons Sports Illustrated one, the headline says Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins likely going to Browns. I don't know how they can swing that.
I don't know, because they have to, unless they're going to go over and just pay an exorbitant amount of money over the tax.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think Kenny Pickett's good. He's proven he's not really a great quarterback by any means. But you're already paying a ton of money to Watson still, who's not necessarily going to be healthy, and who knows what he's going to end up doing. You just brought in Kenny Pickett. Now, I don't think that's the worst move they could have done, because you got rid of DTR, and I think that's an upgrade. But I think, again, that's a low bar to clear. And then you're going to bring in Kirk Cousins? So how much money are you going to end up paying to your quarterbacks? And one who's hurt, the other one who's a backup who's making a boatload of money. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening?
The Browns are brownsing.
I mean, how many bad decisions can you continuously make? Like, honestly, if you're the Browns, just go listen to some of the sports talk radio and be like, just don't do those things that everyone's telling you to do. Because you're like, we shouldn't do this, but we're going to do it anyway, because that's what we're going to, I don't know, fleece people, think somehow they're
like making these smart moves. Madden.
Like, seriously.
But I got a Kenny Pickett story since you mentioned him. I don't like Kenny Pickett, and here's why. 2 years ago, you're a card guy. I opened a mega box of Select. I got a die cut gold numbered to 10 Kenny Pickett that I sent away to get graded. At the time, I could have sold it for $800 raw, but I saw graded ones are going for a couple thousand. By the time I get the crap back, he's been benched and he's terrible. So he cost me thousands of dollars. And that's where I learned a lesson of, all right, unless it's a proven player, I am just selling things raw from now on. I learned a valuable. I was so stoked I got that card. I'm like, oh my God, I'm shaking. I'm like, this is the best card I've ever pulled. I'm thinking, all right, this is going to grade a PSA 10, which it did. And I ended up selling
for
it.
a die cut. That's impressive.
Yeah, I sold it last year, mind you, for 220. So I still got profit off of it, but
Still, though, that hurt.
I had dreams of thousands of dollars. Like, all right, I'm going to do this with the money. So
I mean, imagine if it's a Jaden Daniels, right? Like, imagine if that was Jaden Daniels. Like,
so Nate says, sounds like you stopped. I'm sorry, Nate. But you know how I'm feeling with that. Then no matter what Kenny Pickett does, I'm always having that in my heart of, you cost me thousands, man, because you just couldn't hold it together for a few months for me to get that PSA 10 rookie card back of you.
PSA taking their sweet time.
Yeah. Now I only send things of Josh that I'm going to keep.
There you go. I mean, honestly, it's not a bad way to do it too. And because, you've got it, then you've got it and it's in the slab and, it's safe.
And I'm keeping, I'm keeping Bill's cards. Anything else I'm selling and flipping. But anyway, I digress. That is neither here nor there, but just Kenny Pickett brings up those foul memories for me. But that's our show for today, guys. Lots of Bill stuff. We'll probably have a lot more to talk about coming up. But for Jeremy, I am Lawrence. Nate, thanks for stopping in. Everyone who hung out with us during the show, thank you a lot. We'll catch you around on Come On In Bills, and go Bills.
Go Bills.